What's happening, guys? I'm just going to walk through a bit of an outlook for the coming week. We've got London session in half an hour, so this will be kind of leading into that. I will jump down to the lower timeframes as well to kind of walk through what I'm looking for today. But like always, in the Telegram, I will send out my 15-minute charts. Now, just so you guys know, I am looking at gold now and USDCAD. So they're two pairs that I've added to EURUSD and GBPUSD. So I've got 4 in total now. I'll do a total run through of what I'm looking for on the higher time frame. I haven't done that for those for this week yet on those two pairs. So breaking that down, we'll be able to look at. A good thing is USDCAD goes against EURUSD and GBPUSD, so it works the other way. And gold's kind of its own entity anyway, its own pair. I'm not looking for anything that kind of works with that. That's just its own pair that I'll watch through the day. And I am actually in a trade right now on gold, so I'll walk through that as well as a bit of an extra. So let's jump into it. We'll start with EURUSD. As you can see, this has been our high time frame target for some time now, and I'm still kind of targeting that. So we have come off the back of this major inducement, and if I pull out on the daily, we are in that daily supply, which is showing that it's not holding. So we are still at that 50-50 area, but towards the end of last week on Thursday, we did actually induce really good liquidity here, and we've started to push back to the upside. So all I'm looking for is, given that this hasn't broken through any type of structure that's significant to me, I'm looking to kind of push back up. So we have also had break, a bit of a pull down and a push up. So for me, we've built up internal liquidity from this point. So I'm aiming to just continue to buy. Now that may not be the case because we have major induced into the extreme of this area that took liquidity, which is a really strong supply. We have also taken all of this internal liquidity from this point, so really good, and we could kind of see that shift down to the downside to come and take something like this, or kind of get one more leg take of that and push up. So we are at a 50-50 point, which is really good for how I trade anyway, but more or less I would like to be targeting that as a high time frame target, still coming to target that. Just understanding that we have induced some liquidity and we are kind of getting the rejection from that area. The entire reasoning for that in my head is just to build more liquidity to the upside anyway. So jumping down straight down to the 15-minute, I won't mess around too much on the hourly. We have had, like I said, that inducement. We've broken, created some internal liquidity here, and then started to push back up. So there's multiple ways to read this. We have come into this supply, induced into this supply, and really created good substructure to the downside, creating our complex pullback here. So clear impulse, complex pullback, and all I'm looking to do is continue with this momentum. So this point needs to bring in enough sellers for that to be the case. It may have already done this already. The only thing I'm more or less worried about is this hasn't mitigated or done anything. So what I would kind of like to see happen is use this as a bigger inducement, bring in buys here, because everyone would be buying now with that internal break, or that internal break, come and target this low, and then look to mitigate this area to then buy up, which will build liquidity to the upside. So that's more or less my 1 to 3 day forecast for this pair. So coming into today, I'm looking to sell through this point as this supply holds more than anything in here. I would say until we realistically get to this low, buys are just not on the table. Now this could change. We have got an hour and a half, until London Open. So until then, we'll kind of see what happens. But if you guys want to see a bit of an update, market update closer to the session, the Discord does have a free component which you'll see the market updates, which we do daily. So if you would like to see that, make sure to go and check that out. So I'll do EU and now I'll do GU as they correlate. So GU, more or less the same high time frame target. And I think GU kind of shapes the outlook for EU simply because, yes, we have induced this liquidity here, but this did nothing. Okay, this didn't do anything. It didn't break any significant structure. We've more or less just had price kind of work its way down. Really obvious complex pullback, really obvious impulses in my opinion. So I'm looking to continue with this leg here to come to this 4-hour point, which has been the high time frame target for multiple weeks now. So I still want to come to that, and I still don't think this will hold. We have induced with this 2 legs to the downside into the mitigation of this really good point here that's built up liquidity, and now I'm looking for this to just build liquidity to the upside that we come and target. So if I jump down to the 15-minute, and we can kind of jump in and have a look internally here, we are getting a really slow movement to the downside, just constantly bringing in sellers. We have broken, we have moved down, and we actually are really close to mitigating this area. So there's multiple ways you can look at this. If I jump on the hourly, the internal hour is that, so we're technically in an area of demand, but for me, we haven't mitigated this area yet, and I want to come fill that. So that lines up with EU, and it'll also bring in a lot of liquidity from the upside. So what we've got to do is we've got to go off the last inducement, and the last inducement was high. So this inducement lines up with the inducement on EU. So EU mitigated, GU actually came and took liquidity. So I'm aiming to trade away from this till the next relevant point, which for me, more or less is this low as a minimum. You could get something like that. That is a possibility given that this did result in an internal 15-minute break, but I more think we will get something like this to then build that liquidity to the upside and then buy. So same kind of forecast as what I'm looking at as an EU coming in for the next couple of days, which is really good when they both line up, is to kind of sell off of this point here and then buy from that that extreme demand in this range, which took liquidity and mitigated a previous demand. So really, really strong. And it'll kind of give this seller's trap a lot of validity, in my opinion. So that's kind of the outlook there. Now, jump into USDCAD. Like I said, I am watching and kind of go from there. So USDCAD, very, very bearish. We've come into this area of supply now. So we have mitigated, we have mitigated this area of supply, which is very, very clean. So off of that area of supply, looking just to trade away from that until it tells us something different. So we have come into demand. So we are 50-50 on USDCAD, which very much lines up so with EU and GU, which is perfect. And more or less trying to trade in between those areas. We are very, very bullish from down here. I'll look and see if we've taken liquidity. We've actually come into a really, really good demand. Really clean demand, actually. So we've mitigated this demand. We are bullish on the daily, which is quite obvious. We've mitigated this demand here, which is really clean, and we can kind of see this in both lights. So given the mitigation of this point, this should not hold. None of this should hold, given that this holds more weight, and that's our current bullish structure cycle. So coming to take this as a higher time frame target is actually a really, really good target. So I'm going to mark that out just like I have on EU and GU, and I suggest you guys do the same coming into the week, just so you understand where your targets are for the week. And where you're kind of heading as a higher time frame. Sorry, yapping, and kind of heading for that. So I'll actually jump more on the 4 hour again, and we can kind of come internally in here. We have reacted off this point, which I hope is a smart money trap, which is a seller's trap. We've pushed up from here and created another section here. So I'm going to treat this as a seller's trap until it's not. I actually won't mark that out as a seller's trap just yet because it holds a lot of weight. So we can jump straight down to the 15-minute and kind of read internally what the go is here. I did have this marked out as a buy. I'll explain that in a sec. So we've come into this area. We've had a really, really clean major inducement, major take of liquidity. We've then retested that area and created a really, really strong range. So we've come in and we've had our first external break, what I would call external break, without creating substructure. So what we're looking at is this point shouldn't hold given the inducement into mitigation of this point. Most recent demand that broke through a high, we've then induced really good liquidity into this demand, looking to continue with that bullish price action, like I've said. This point shouldn't hold given just this point versus this point, this liquidity versus this liquidity. A lot of sellers will be in here. A lot of your standard break set limit here will be in here. Smart money traders are definitely one that get caught in there. So I'm looking to use that as a liquidity take. So if we read inducements, we've got our first inducement off this area. We then created off of this point a really, really good demand that pushed. Coming in and inducing this demand, I'm actually happy to buy off of that, which is kind of what's happening now. So I'll actually read and just see if we've got an entry. I don't like trading USDCAD at this time, but we may have actually had an entry, which would be a bit of a nugget for you guys. So we've got internal break of structure, which then led to an inducement here. So funnily enough, this was a valid limit here. Okay, as you can see, very choppy because Asia session has nothing to do with USDCAD, so it'll be very choppy and slow, but that was a valid entry that I would be taking if we had a little bit of timing on our hands in terms of being in the New York session or the London session, but more New York session, but nothing there for us there. More or less trying to trade with that. Once we come and take this low, we have shown that more or less, which can happen from this point anyway, that this range here with the major inducement, none of this will more or less hold, and I'll be targeting this low here, trying to sell like that. So that's more of a high time from outlook. I would suggest you guys don't focus on too many pairs. This is just a pair I'm focusing on, and that's my current read with this price action. Okay, buys from where it is. If it come and takes this low, I'm going to be looking for long-term sells, given the major inducement, but high time frame whereas I would like to come take this. Given the validity of this point, you may actually find this comes and takes this liquidity here, which is really, really good liquidity to come and take. Builds up trend line to come and take that, which will line up with EU and GU on a higher time frame aspect anyway. So immediate target, long-term target, and then kind of go from there, given current structure. So bit of a look into there. Now gold, I said I was in a trade, and I'll quickly walk through that. As you can see, bullish on gold, so buys are just the go. My application on gold is more or less just trading the internal price action on the 15 minutes. So I'm focusing on 15-minute ranges. I've got a demand here, by criteria that I've hit. that has been induced and mitigated into, given confirmations I have this point shouldn't hold and this point should. Given that, all I've done is trade a 15-minute inducement into this mitigation. So I won't go too far into that because there's a lot broken down here on how I got to this point. It has run 1 to 3 at a normal entry I would trade, but I'm trading gold simply on liquidity. So hopefully I get a follow through for 1 to 5. It'll start the week off good. I'm at break even, and that's kind of this area here. So we are starting to get that retracement to the downside. Like I said, we have actually induced and mitigated into a point that holds value. So we should take 15-minute structure in the opposite direction that holds weight. This is that 15-minute structure. Okay, it is a valid supply, which can hold enough to come take this. It is a possibility, and that's why partials and things exist in a trade like this. For me, I'm not doing that application with this trade today, given some criteria rules I have. But all we've had is an internal break. We've then had a supply to demand form here, which has then created internal liquidity, which created another supply to demand. I've then taken that supply to demand, which for my criteria is a medium inducement to push up. So that there. I don't really have high time frame forecasts on gold, simply because we are so bullish. So for more, I'm just trading 15-minute structure, 15-minute inducements, which is a requirement-based thing for me personally. So I definitely wouldn't focus too hard on gold. But if you do trade gold, I will be updating the Telegram with 15-minute looks that I'm looking at day to day. So that may help you there. A little bit of extra information for you guys there. So that's what we're looking at come to this week. We'll see what happens. 15-minute I've gone through for each day as well. So I'll see you guys in the Telegram. If you guys have any questions on anything, make sure to chuck them down, and we can kind of go from there. So let's have a good week.